Well, good evening, everybody. Going live. Camera's not set right. Ooh. Yours is set too low. And you're muted. Anyways, let's see what's in the...
Mine's all messed up, too. Everything's everywhere.
Yeah, you're okay, though, right now. What's in the comments? There's nothing in the comments. What's going on? Anyways, I'm drinking apple cider again today. Cheers. What do you got, beer? You're muted. Stop doing this mime thing.
I said, yes, we have beer happening. Sorry, I'm stealing your role.
Anyways, I'm out of smoke, so I got to back in a second. What are you going to talk
about? I told you to go get some. I went and got some.
They're on the table. Back in a second.
All right. Look, there's nobody here. No one's watching. Where is everybody? Hello. All right. So, anything anyone wants to speak of? Anywhere, anything? Okay, how about this? So, there was the Chippewa Native case that was going on, and it was denied leave to appeal. So that one's set. Now there's still the other case in BC. We'll get into that at another time when things are researched a lot better. But
what does leave to appeal mean?
Leave to appeal is when you have to ask the courts to appeal. It's not a right of appeal. So if you're in criminal court, it's an automatic right to appeal. You don't have to ask because it's criminal. You know, you're facing, jail time or whatever. So you get a right to appeal. These types, there's no right to appeal. So you have to ask leave to appeal. And you got to be persuasive in your argument of why you should be granted that appeal.
So that's if you lose a civil suit or what?
Yeah, exactly. In a civil suit, same thing. There's no right of appeal there.
So leave of appeal is just for civil suits, or what other kind of lawsuits?
No, there's different things that can vary, but usually it's criminal. You'll get an automatic right to appeal provincial offenses, stuff like that.
So tell me more about this leave of appeal.
Well, it's just that it was denied. We were going to be interveners on that, and it was denied. So that's it. That was a leave to appeal to the Supreme Court. That's the end of it. I haven't read the official reasons behind it, and sometimes they don't give any. They just say it's been denied, and that's all they put out there. They can say that, like the Lynch case, Lynch versus City of St. John's. City of St. John's tried to appeal that. Excellent private property case. And Supreme Court said, nope, lower courts got it right, and that was it. So there was no real reasoning for it.
So they did reconsider it. The upper courts did go through it.
What's that? Sorry?
So the upper court did go through it. They reviewed it.
Yeah, they reviewed the appeal and the grounds for it, and they said no. So that's that for that.
So I guess he didn't have a very good argument.
Well, I don't know. There could be a lot of factors, but yeah, interesting enough. I can't really say, so I don't know.
One of the beer companies called The Crown is moving its operations to the U.S. You heard?
All right. Yeah, well, everybody's leaving Canada. Nobody wants to stay in a country where you're taxed to death. And if you do any moves, investing in properties or anything, they want to steal all your money. So why the hell are you here? The whole point of an investment is so that you can prosper and hold on to it and let yourself make money, not the government for you to make, like, say you buy a property and suddenly so many years later it's worth like $300,000-$400,000, and the government says, well, we're going to take that whole $400,000 and then some, so you'll get even less for selling your place than what you bought it for. That's the fucked up Canadian fucking version.
Well, right now the housing markets, we're in the beginning of a market crash.
Nah, that's all bullshit. Markets just jumped again here. They haven't slowed down one bit. That's what they're saying in hopes of trying to stem the flow so everybody will believe that. Not true. It's up again.
I don't know. From what I've been reading, Muskoka is down 15 or 20% over year. Kawarthas are down 6%, I think, year over year.
Yeah, but look where you're talking. What's out there? You know, down here they're all up. Everything's down here. You got a shitload of stuff down here, so you can't gauge that. You can't take places that are way the fuck up north. The only one who's going to want to go up there is hunters, or maybe wanting to make a hunt camp for business, or Lord, I don't know why anybody would want to make a business in Canada, anyways. But yeah, but when you're down here, that housing market's just skyrocketing away like crazy. It's freaking again. It's up and up and up. There's no crash. That's what they'd love to happen. Oh, and hello everyone. Oh, what's this? Scamming, grifting, and thefts. You know, whenever you see an economy go to shit like Canada's gone to shit, uh, crime skyrockets. It always soars at that point. Always. They go hand in hand. When everyone's doing good, nobody's really stealing.
So, what I've been hearing a lot about, I don't know if you've been following this, but Trump is going to be coming out with, it's not a CBDC. They said they're banning the central digital currency, but what they are coming out with, they're going to tokenize everything. And what tokenization means, from what I've been gathering, or the way they plan to do it, they want to put a digital token on every asset in the world is what they're aiming for. I think they're going to start with North America first and possibly Europe. But basically, the West is going to be tokenized. The debt, the public debt, the total amount owing in the United States by the government is up over 37 billion, if it's not 38 billion already. And it's just getting exponential the way it's growing. They're never going to be able to pay this money down. And if you look at for every tax dollar they bring in, they got to borrow money to cover the previous year's deficits or the previous month's deficits, the shortfall. I think a lot of Americans are going to be blindsided by this. So their taxes have got to go up. Trump already put tariffs on, which is basically an import duty or an import tax. So whatever comes in from outside the country, Americans got to pay more for that. And because, say, we're shipping stuff to the States, trading with them, well, they're slapping 10, 20, 25, whatever % interest tax on importing that stuff. And apparently, Carney cut all the import duties on American goods. So maybe Trump rolled back some of that stuff. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how this plays out.
Well, he wants Carney, the clown Carney, to get rid of the digital online streaming bullshit that he's put a ban on. This is why we can't see nothing, all that crap. And you make a good point there, because everyone thinks, yeah, let's fucking nail them with tariffs. But what they don't understand is the country that puts the tariffs on, they're the ones that suffer. People don't get that. They don't understand it. And digitizing everything, and remember, they've been talking about going digital here since way back when Fat Ford got elected. His first term when he was elected, he thought in January he was going to have the digital wallet and everything was going to be digitized, digital currency, you name it. He couldn't do it because he realized, the fucking idiot, that that's not his jurisdiction. That's federal. So he couldn't do it. He had to scrap it. And then, of course, the ass kissing that he always does with the liberals, he had the turd try to take it on. And then they had the other big problem, which they couldn't do it because all our debt and all the money we've borrowed and stuff, that's all based on the resources of Canada. So they have nothing they can put up for collateral for the digital currency. So they had to work that out. And I haven't heard anything yet of what they were going to put up as collateral in order to get all this digital money. And you're talking 30 billion, whatever. Look at Canada's deficit. We're in the trillion. Forget the billions. We're worse than they are.
Yeah, if you look at it per capita basis, I think we're going to be a lot worse than the Americans, and it's going to get a lot worse very quickly, which means your taxes are going to have to go up. And I think this is part of the plan that you'll own nothing and be happy. If they tax the shit out of us, what's left? Like, people are stretched already to the max already. Most people that I know, a lot of them are complaining. But you know what? If you guys voted for Mark Carney, you voted for this. Enjoy.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who voted for it. We're all fucked. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who did it. We're all fucked. And all these people that don't vote, you're fucked too, because you just let these idiots decide your fate. So get your back muscles ready, because you're going to be bending over quite a bit. Quite a bit.
You know, there's a quote, someone quoted saying, if voting would make a difference, they wouldn't let us do it.
Well, you know, I see it all the time. People don't, and all the elections I've run in, all the elections we've had, what do we get? We're not even getting fucking 50% of the people. It's like usually 26, 30%. So the minority is deciding your fate. And whether you want to ignore politics, hate politics, or don't bother with politics, politics is what's running your life. Whether you think it is or it isn't, it is in one way or another. So if you sit back and don't vote, you're fucked. Regardless, you're fucked.
So, yeah, a lot of people don't understand how important politics are in our daily lives. But they're kind of crafty the way these gangsters do it. And they are scum. And they are gangsters because at the point of a gun, they extort us, they change the laws. Here's another thing. Have you read C2, C3, C5, or C6, the new bills at all?
I've read a couple of them, but I'd have to look at which ones in particular you're talking about. I C2, I remember C5, yep, C6, yep. So they're all omnibus bills, and this is what people don't understand either, because one bill affects multiple legislations. And the problem with this is we've had our law researcher go into this and check them all over the years. These bills are not constitutional for the fact they're an omnibus bill. And what happens to the elected idiots who's really running everything is staff, and they're using these United Nations primers, and they're bringing this shit from the UN to these elected idiots. And can you imagine an omnibus bill? You're going to have like a giant freaking stack of papers, tens of thousands of papers on change. You think these morons are actually sitting down and reading through everything to pick out what's right and what's wrong? And you know, when you got that many pages, you got to make notes, because you're not going to remember what page one said at page 10,099. You're gonna forget, so you got to make notes of what you're thinking about. So this is the bullshit. They're ill-informed, uninformed. They don't do their duty that they're supposed to, and that's to read through everything. And they just take staff's word for it. This is what it's gonna do. And like a lot of times, I always say, a lot of bills have the good intent. The intent is there for something good, and then they give it to the fucking bureaucrats. And those pile of shits are the ones that write the regulation to the bill. And that's where you get screwed. That's where all this massive unconstitutional crap comes in a lot of bills. Nobody challenges anything. So, as the judges say, every law is constitutional until it's ruled that it's not. So, if it's not challenged and it is unconstitutional, well, it's constitutional until you challenge it and we say otherwise.
Okay, so I was talking at our, I mentioned this at our Wednesday meeting, which is up in Newmarket. A bunch of people get together and we talk about various topics. And we have people that present stuff. And sometimes we get a big turnout, like 100, 150 people. Sometimes we only get 20 or 30, depending on what the topic is. and the time of the year makes a big difference. But I mentioned that they can come out with all these laws like C2, C5, C6. And if they are unconstitutional, the only weapon we really have against the government, and I explained this also, the only reason we have a constitution is because by nature, and you've said this to me many times, governments are tyrannical and they're tyrants and they behave like tyrants. Now, any liberals that are watching the show, you're probably going, "Ree!" Think, no, the government
I'm not going to limit that to liberals, all right? Because the conservatives are right just like the liberals. So I'm not even going to single anyone out. I'm going to throw them all in there in one big pile of soup of crap.
All right, granted, and we've seen the evidence. We see it all the time. Anyways, how do you challenge one of these omnibus bills constitutionally? Do you challenge the whole bill or just part of it?
You have to challenge it on the parts that are unconstitutional. So you can't just scrap an entire bill because one section's unconstitutional. You have to challenge the section that is unconstitutional.
Now, what would something like that cost to go the whole process from the initial filing, a guesstimate, if you had to guess?
I can't even guess it. It depends on how serious of a challenge is. So let's take this gun law stuff, all right? So the gun grab, the unlawful gun grab that's going on right now, that we're looking at probably about 100,000, maybe a little more, and around 100,000 from start to the Supreme Court of Canada to the end, depending on how vigorously the government challenges it. Because one of the tactics that government uses is that they will bring several motions to attempt along the way to have it thrown out for whatever reason their little minds can dream up of. There's stuff like that. So, each one of those might cost you 20, 30 grand to do each motion. So that can run up the cost quite quickly. Or, in the case of insurance companies, they'll drag some cases on for 10 years to the point where, and this is a tactic, and they taught us this in school, it's a tactic they use because they know that a certain percentage of these people will end up committing suicide. And when they commit suicide, that's it. It's the end of the case. So they'll drag it on until you self-destruct.
Yeah, talking about self-destruct, you earlier today we had a conversation. You said you were not too impressed with some of the lawyers in Alberta. What's up with that? You want to share some of that information?
It's just there's a lot of lawyers that, and the excuses, and some people trying to find them the excuses that we're getting. You got to keep in mind every province is governed differently. Their legal stuff changes along the way. Their law societies are different, and you have ones like in Alberta where the law society, if a lawyer, let's say you find a lawyer and a lawyer says, you know what, we'll start the case, we'll do whatever, and you can pay us as we go along, that's fine. The law society will step in and tell that lawyer, no, you're not going to do that. You got to have a retainer of however much minimum in order to start, period. And a lot of these lawyers, I've noticed, with excuses that were given and stuff, when I look into that, no, they're like so wrong, and they're so wrong even against the case laws that are out there. They're still wrong. They have a wrong opinion. So it's Alberta's not a good place for your legal battles. That's I've found. It's pretty disheartening, actually.
So is this countrywide or is this just Alberta?
No, that's just Alberta. Much different than Ontario. Ontario, I can tell you a good lawyer and a bad lawyer pretty quickly. But these guys in Alberta, no, thank you. It's really weird, and there's not very many lawyers there, and that's what really is really strange, and that's a danger there. because if lawyers don't want to go against a narrative, let's say they're biased in some way, shape, or form, they'll come up with every reason not to represent you, or just simply will just tell you no, it's no good, and you won't be successful, and that'll be the end of that. They don't want to challenge it. They don't want to set a precedent. They don't want to, who knows what, who knows the reasoning behind it. But I found it very, very strange.
Well, remember we had a hard time keeping Kevin out of jail during COVID?
Yeah, I remember we had to go all over the place, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't any real lawyer in Alberta that took up to keep him out.
But the province sure hired the best that they could find, which was another Johnson to prosecute him.
Well, when you're the crown, you're the crown. You find what you need. Remember, crowns don't really care whether they get you proper time or not. It's not their job is to just get a conviction, and that's it. Nothing else. What that conviction looks like is totally up to them.
Okay, back to this narrative. I don't know if anyone's been noticing, but Pat King, time served, convicted. What did he do? 4 months in jail or something in a local shitty jail, Ottawa jail, which was horrendous. A lot of time was spent in solitary. He had problems with his leg getting infected, being denied appropriate medical care, and nobody got hurt. There's no victim, unless you're a commie SOB that thinks Ottawa is being occupied, but wasn't being occupied.
Hold on, I got to stop you there for a second. You said there was no victim, but there is a victim. It's the government. Their feelings were hurt, that the people said enough is enough, and this isn't what we signed up for, and we don't want this. So the victims, the government, their feelings were hurt. Everybody was peaceful. So the government's got to come down with its tyrannical fist and try to make an example out of a few people here and there and try to spin a narrative. And this is why I kept telling everyone to make sure you keep calling it a peaceful assembly. Nobody did. They called it a protest, which kind of takes it outside those lines. And then the government spun it and called it an occupation. But I'm sure if it's Antifa or some bullshit like that, and they occupy a town or a street or something for extended periods of time, they're more than allowed to. Not a problem. And they get violent. It's never peaceful with them.
So another law that Poilievre also voted for was the one where they said if you talk to any kid that's thinking about transitioning, they try to talk them out of it, you can go to jail for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
For trying to dissuade the child from doing a gender reassignment surgery and taking all these nasty chemicals to stop their hormones and mess that up. And I think that's unconstitutional, is it not? What happened to freedom of thought?
Absolutely, but you see, nobody ever challenged that legislation again. And not only that, but in that bit of legislation, which people knew about, I'm not going to say they didn't know about it because it was hidden, because it wasn't. And people knew about it because they were talking about it. But it literally makes the government the parent of your child. And this is why they call it the Co-Parenting Act. So the government is co-parenting with you, with the child, because they've declared themselves a parent. That's unconstitutional right there in itself. That's fucking crazy. That's forced speech. That's forced thought. That's forced, you name it.
Pretty good for communism, though, because that's the way communism works, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're your baby daddy, and we're going to tell you what to do. And if you dare speak against me, you're going to get the backhander from the co-parent, and we're going to fucking throw you in jail, and we're going to do what we want with your kid under the guise of your kid thinking that's what the kid wants, but they're too young to know any better. And then when they start doing this and they're feeling so bad and all screwed up, and then they're totally screwed mentally along with physically, then they want to kill themselves. then you got a bigger problem.
So just let me get this straight. Assuming I had a kid and he would say 5 years old and he says, I identify as a pirate, I want to transition to pirate. Do I have to take that kid, cut off one of his hands and give him above the knee amputation so he gets a peg leg? Is that what you're saying? I have to.
Peg leg and a hook on the hand. Okay, that's exactly. If the government sees that's the proper routine, then so be it.
So I can't even talk him out of this.
Yeah, how dare you say you need your head? You got to pick things up. You don't want a hook. Nope, that's wrong. You're going to jail, Ed. How dare you say that to that kid?
Well, how about the furries?
Hey, they're all taken care of, all right. They got litter boxes in the corner of the room. There's nothing to worry about.
Oh man. 30 years ago, if we would have been having this discussion, I'd say, man, you're on some kind of weird drugs.
We
You're
had
way
this
out the line.
discussion with my dad. It was my dad telling me this, and I was like, okay. I didn't doubt him, but I didn't believe him either. But here we are.
You know what? I got to do some math here. I think I was about 21 years old. So 41 years ago, before my dad passed away, somehow we got into the conversation of don't get into politics. And I said, well, whatever, we'll see where my life takes me. But he says, no, stay out of politics. I said, but why? He says, well, why? Because this country is going to be communist in your lifetime. I laughed at him. 41 years ago. How the fuck did he know?
Yeah, and my dad told me they will tax us on breathing the air. And look, we got a carbon tax. He knew. But one thing he was proud or no fuck that I became a candidate and a member of the Libertarian Party, because when the Libertarian Party was formed, he was actually one of the people who signed to have that party formed. So he was happier than shit because he was a libertarian.
Unfortunately, a lot of these people are passing on already. The ones that lived through World War II, that seen what was coming, seen the shit that was going on. And they talk about brother against brother in World War II. Well, look what's been going on during COVID. Brother against brother.
Brother, sister, mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, you name it, everybody. Is so many families were torn apart over it.
Yeah, I'm also a victim in that sense. I didn't go to two Christmases I wasn't allowed to go because I wasn't jabbed and I wouldn't wear the mask. New Year's, I missed my nephew's, two of my nephew's confirmations because they were limiting how many people could come to the church during COVID for the confirmation. And they knew, I was even asked, you going to wear your mask if you come? I says, nope. I refuse. It's all a big, big lie. And here we are 4 or 5 years later. Now people are starting to wake up. Now.
It's a little too late, and I don't even know on the amount of how many people are waking up, because I sure as hell don't see any noise out there. I still see the sheep following the shepherd, so to speak.
Yeah. I'd like to know when people are going to figure out that TV lies to you. Your government does nothing but lie to you. Cops lie all the time. Look at the Helen Bruce case. So back to the narrative. When you're going against the narrative, which Helen Bruce obviously was, and now I found out recently that legislation has been passed where cops have to ask permission before they can do an investigation. How do you like that one?
That's just absolutely fucking crazy. And there's a break-in that I had at my house about a year ago, and that I'm not going to let go of. So cops are going to have a little bit of a problem on this one. And unlike them, I won't take it to a board or a tribunal. I'll take it to the court, and that'll be a different story. That's where law applies, not bullshit procedure and fairness.
So this came out last fall, believe it or not, and I just heard about this the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it's true.
It came into effect April 1st because it's a big fucking joke. Have you not noticed? April 1st, Have you not noticed that all these new pieces of legislation all come on April 1st? We even had Donald Trump sit there and say something about April 1st, and he alludes to it. He even said, oh, geez, I wonder why it would be that date. Because it's all a fucking joke on you fucking people out there. Because they think we're the useless eaters, we're the waste, and they don't give a flying F about anything. But this is their way. They can't resist to give us backhanded insults without telling it to us directly. April Fool's is a bad joke.
Okay, first off, this president thing, I don't get. The supreme law is the Constitution. How does that need precedent?
Well, there's precedent, case law. The Constitution being the supreme law, that's absolutely correct. Precedent is what's set when a ruling comes down, if it's a ruling of its first kind. So, in cases where they have, come up on a case where it hasn't been heard before on that argument, however that case is ruled, that becomes the precedent. Unless you can overturn it immediately and then keep getting it overturned over and over, and then that becomes a precedent. That's how that works.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and there's interpretations of this. Remember, what was the case that the last surviving guy that wrote the Constitution, not the Constitution, the Charter of Rights, which is part of the Constitution, the guy from Newfoundland, what was his name?
Oh, we're talking. We had him on the show. What the hell was his name?
Yeah, we should get him back on again. Eh?
Yeah, but you see, during that show, I don't know if you remember, but I asked him, don't you think the notwithstanding clause should be removed? Because that should be removed. And there's already a bunch of judges that sat together and had a conversation and found that clause in itself is unconstitutional. And it's unconstitutional for the fact that if it's for the people, how can these are inviolable rights. Yes, Brian Peckford. Thank you, Danny. If your constitutional rights are inviolable, then how can they void it? You see, so that in itself is unconstitutional. And for the life of me, I haven't seen no one ever challenge that. It's just fucking dumbfounds me. It dumbfounds me. Where's the JCCF? Where's the other one? What's it? The Constitutional Center for Freedoms or something like that? The CCF is it or something? But where are these guys? These are big challenges with huge implications, and they should be challenging that kind of stuff because
I'll tell you where they are.
Ed, tyranny comes always under the guise of safety. And when they set a precedent that we can now use the notwithstanding clause and strip you of your constitutional rights because it's got to do with safety, that's the ultimate unconstitutional move.
I'll tell you why these things haven't been challenged. They're so busy putting out so many fires. How do you focus in on everything? Like it's throwing so many of these crazy unconstitutional laws are coming at us. Canadians don't realize they've got that power until we spread the message saying, yeah, we got constitutional again, it comes down to limiting the powers of the government so they don't become tyrannical. And yet they are becoming tyrannical because not enough people can get organized, find top-notch lawyers, and challenge these things. Now, here again, precedent in the case of notwithstanding clause. If a case would be heard, but somehow they've got to violate you in some reason, saying like they invoke the notwithstanding clause, and then I get charged under the new law, and they use the notwithstanding clause to usher in this new law. Then I say, hey, I've been charged for this. I think it's unconstitutional. I got to find myself a good constitutional lawyer that specializes in this shit, because not every lawyer will do it. And I got to bring a case forward or a lawsuit forward, claiming my constitutional rights have been violated. Then let's get out there. My lawyer and the Crown are going to argue this in front of a judge. Once the judge comes to an agreeable decision, hopefully we've argued it properly, and they can only listen to what's put in front of them. Hearsay doesn't apply. True? Yes or no?
No, hearsay doesn't apply, but in boards and tribunals, you can use hearsay. So you see, this is why boards and tribunals need to go by the wayside.
Listen, hang on. Stop calling them boards and tribunals. Start calling them what they are. Kangaroo courts. Go on.
Yeah, they need to go by the wayside, and people need to stop using them because hearsay is used, law doesn't apply, Constitution doesn't apply. You can say whatever the hell you want. And the same thing with provincial offenses. Provincial offenses is unconstitutional also because you're viewed as guilty 100%, and the onus is on you to prove yourself innocent, not the Crown. And Denny, that's what I was talking about on how it doesn't fit with section 1. That's what I'm talking about right there. And I always mute the mic, Jay, just to stop any interference regardless. But this is the problem. And nobody's challenged anything. Nothing. And, we had Fat Ford get in. He used the notwithstanding clause, stripped us for 5 years on elections, so he can rig the elections. We had we got Pierre Pissy Pants Polyev. What was he campaigning on? How the hell are these people in Canada? You know what? We got no one to blame. I'm not going to blame any politician for what they're doing to us unconstitutional. I'm going to blame it on the Canadian people because the people vote these morons in. So you had old fool saying he was going to take the military and go door to door. That's what he campaigned on. He's going to go door to door and jab everyone. Now we got idiot Polyev saying he's going to strip us. He's going to suspend the constitutional rights so he can put you in jail. So the jail limitation, so cruel and unusual punishment won't apply. Could you imagine the shit show that would happen with people that were charged with mischief, Pastor Arts and others? Life sentences. Take a life sentence for mischief. This is the insanity. And then the moron, you've all seen the video, I've posted it, where he says, I'm going to protect the charter. He's going to use the charter to protect the charter. In other words, he's saying he's going to use the notwithstanding clause to strip you of your constitutional rights and suspend it so he can protect the charter. He's not protecting the charter. That's a pure abuse of power, and why that section, the notwithstanding clause, is unconstitutional for when you get tyrannical scumbags like that pile of shit that want to strip you of your rights so he can give you a life sentence for anything. Doesn't matter if you got a criminal record. Doesn't matter if you don't have one. Have never been in trouble with the law ever. You're going to get a life fucking sentence for mischief, for something that was constitutionally allowed and so declared by the courts.
So I was wondering why I was never arrested or charged or thrown in jail during COVID. I was there on the front lines. I wasn't masking. I wasn't exercising either. I was going to the protests. Hundreds. Actually, I probably went to over 1,000 protests over those 4 years when you add up all the numbers and all the weekends. That's all I did. Saturdays and Sundays. Set up a PA system for protests all over Southern Ontario. And they gave me a few COVID tickets. I ignored them. Maybe I will go to jail, but I don't think they're going to throw me in jail. You know why? 40 plus years as a contractor in construction and renovations. If I can build it, I can break it.
That's true. And then, Danny, that stuff you're talking about, your living tree doctrine here, that's no different than common law. But this is the way they take sections and twist sections and abuse sections in order to screw us. So when you got government who's tyrannical by nature, always getting more tyrannical and always trying to steal our money from our pockets. And I did say steal because that's what it is, theft. And they are using whatever way they can, any crafty way to screw us even further. And it's not just stealing from money. We're talking stealing your life, because they're stealing your life every time they sentence you to jail for something that you were doing that's constitutionally protected. So these guys will use whatever. It's just like common law. Common law evolves as society evolves. So your living doctrine that you're talking about, the Constitution, evolves as society evolves. The same shit. They're just applying it to the Constitution now instead of just the common law, because the common law changes by the stroke of a pen, and that is in a ruling. So common law always changes. I think I've used the examples before back in the 1100s. Maybe if you stole someone's sheep or goat or something, they would cut your hands off. Nowadays you don't get your hands cut off, you get thrown in a slammer or a slap on the wrist and a fine or something, depending.
Actually, there's countries in Africa, Muslim countries or Muslim dominated countries, whereas if you steal something, they will cut off your hand and they'll cut off your foot. And depending how much you stole, they may cut off both feet or both hands.
Yeah, but Ed, we're talking in a civilized country, okay, like Canada. So we can't use that example here, because we don't do that no more. That our common law has changed, right? It comes from the common circle.
Civilized? Where do you get civilized from?
Well, it's a little more civilized, all right. That's all I'm gonna say. Well, it was. It's changing again, but
I've never seen dozens of police go and violently beat down protesters in Africa.
Exactly. I've seen them in Africa just slaughter them. Never mind beat them down. They get shot. But Danny, again, now you're talking about Peckford criticizing the Living Tree document. Why doesn't Peckford criticize himself, since he's the cocksucker who went and freaking wrote that notwithstanding clause into the charter? How about you criticize him? Forget the Living Tree document. How about we start with Peckford first?
Well, in Peckford's defense, I remember watching a couple of shows that he was on, and they had that notwithstanding clause only to be used in certain circumstances, and one of those was if the country's in war, time of war. Not emergency, a time of war.
I remember when I asked him that question here, he said, well, it's needed sometimes. So all I'm going to say to that is he's a politician. He's got no excuse. He's got no way around it. He knows automatically that when you put pieces of garbage, human excrement into office to create bills like this and make these changes, all right, they know full well when they put these types of clauses that they turn around, because that opens the door wide open for abuse. We've seen it, Doug Ford doing it to change the Elections Act to make it unconstitutional, so the main parties have an upper hand over the parties that people don't know about. We've seen Poilievre trying to use it now to screw everybody. So this is where you have to understand, these guys are politicians. They've been doing this all their lives. They know that this will open the door to abuse. And when you have a creature that's tyrannical by nature, they're going to take full well advantage of that clause to use it for something that's not meant. How many times have I said bills that are created have good intent? It's the bureaucrats that fuck that up. So when you start putting shit like that in there, it takes that good intent away, and it's used in an abusive manner against the people, the very people that this document was meant to protect. It was created to protect those people from the tyrannical government. This is where we have to understand this. So he has no excuse. He was fully aware that this is something that was a possibility later on down the road, and he found it himself.
So, man, where's the time go? We got about 10 minutes left in the show, guys. You got any questions? Put them in the chat. Any observations, comments? Do you need us to clarify anything for you? Anything you're kind of iffy on? Especially the power of the Constitution that we have.
Hey, Ed, don't kid yourself. I'm not telling people, the Constitution is extremely powerful, and it's, I see it daily in the courts. Now, the Charter is just a section of the Constitution, and the Charter, that notwithstanding clause, only affects the Charter. It does not affect not the BNA or any other part of the Constitution that's in there. So it's just that section.
Yeah, I'm just checking here. We're supposed to be live on YouTube. I don't know if I'm getting shadow banned on YouTube or not, but I got try and check here if anyone's watching us on YouTube. Huh. Interesting. I seen that something came through.
Live.
Open. I got an email. Now live on your channel. The lounge is live again tonight at 9 p.m. And the page is Silver Space is Space Real Money. Yeah, we're live apparently. 0 people watching. You got to look into that. Not even. Oh, one person is watching. That's probably me.
Yeah, I looked too, so it was probably.
So, anyways, if you want to share this video out, we are on YouTube. What else? What questions we got in here? Stefanos, how do you feel about the Oakes test part of Section 1? And what is the Oakes test?
Again, the Oakes test, I think I've covered that before. But, the Oakes test, again, that opens the door. What's the Oakes test to Section 1? What does that tell you? What are limited, reasonable limits to the state? So what's the reasonable limit? Under the guise of safety. This is the thing we are seeing over and over and over. The YouTube name is Silver is Real Money. But this is how they apply the Oakes test to it. Is it reasonable? Well, you tell me. Is COVID, the fake pandemic, reasonable to the average person? Absolutely not. Is it reasonable to government and rational? Absolutely. And that's going to reach their objective that they wanted, and that was to quell everyone, to shut us up, because they didn't want any pushback.
Provision. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees the rights and freedoms set out in it subject only to such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. Similar provisions, when enacted in 1982, Section 1 of the Charter represented an innovation in human rights as it set out a general framework for justifying limits on rights and freedoms guaranteed in the Charter. There's no similar provision in the Canadian Bill of Rights. With respect to international instruments binding on Canada, somewhat similar provisions may be found in the International Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. I love how they throw in social in there.
Of course, socialism's through it all there, Ed. One quick thing here. Hashim, does the charter need to be amended? No, obviously it needs to have Section 1 removed completely. It needs to be repealed. That's the only way to fix it.
Which contains standalone limitation provisions in Articles 4 and 5. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights contains limitation provisions which are specific to certain rights. Articles 12, mobility rights. 14, 1, open courts. 18, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. 19, freedom of expression and opinion. 21, right of peaceful assembly. And 22, freedom of association. See also the following international, regional, and comparative law instruments that are not legally binding on Canada, but include similar provisions. South African's Constitution Bill of Rights includes a very similar general limitation clause in Section 36. Just so you know, South Africa is full-blown communist.
Well, why are we bringing up South Africa and Canadian laws and coming up with a Bill of Rights? A Bill of Rights isn't even worth the paper it's written on. That's right from court rulings, and all these idiots who are being misled by these morons. The Bill of Rights only applies to federal, and if you read the Bill of Rights reads just like the Charter, almost identical. So
the European Convention on Human Rights contains limitation clauses which are specific to rights and freedoms guaranteed under the convention articles.
And let me stop you there for a sec. Treaties, conventions, and accords are not enforceable in Canada, except for the Indian treaties that are with the government because they're in the Constitution. Ask yourself, why are they bringing up covenants and garbage in this crap?
And the Freedom of Association. That convention, however, does not contain a standalone limitation provision. The United States Bill of Rights does not contain a similar provision. Purpose. Now keep in mind, this was done under communist Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who was a prime minister at the time. I'm not saying honorable because I think he's totally dishonorable. Section 1 affects a balance between the rights of the individual and the interests of society by permitting limits to be placed on guaranteed rights and freedoms. So you can have it sometimes, but not most of the time.
I'll give you a good example of something, and also in the Constitution of Canada, it says that laws apply to everyone equally. Well, Doug Ford has come up with an unconstitutional law that lets people who wear the turbans not have to wear motorcycles or motorcycle helmets because they got the turban on. So he's made that exemption so they can ride with no helmet. Is that constitutional? No. He wants to make a proper constitutional bit of legislation. He should just say helmets are voluntary. That's it. They're optional. If you want to wear one, wear one. If you don't, don't.
Most modern constitutions recognize that rights are not absolute. Since when? And can be limited if this is necessary to achieve an important objective, communism, and if the limit is appropriately tailored or proportionate. Canada Attorney General.
There you go.
JTI McDonald Court by paragraphs 36. The values and principles which guide the court in applying Section 1 include the inherent dignity of the human person. Where's the dignity if they force me to wear a freaking mask and take experimental injections?
Well, and there you go. And this is why the notwithstanding clause needs to go by the wayside. The only way to fix it is to have it repealed because it's already been, I believe it was the Douglas case where the judges have that conversation and say that it is unconstitutional. Those rights can't be void, so government cannot go and insert something to void them when they're not able to void them. So this is crazy.
The values and principles which guide the court in applying Section 1 include the inherent dignity of the human person, commitment to social justice and equality, accommodation of a wide variety of beliefs, respect for cultural and group identity, and faith in social and political institutions which enhance the participation of individuals and groups in society. Regina versus Oakes, 1986.
Are you referring the case of the Oakes test there, Ed? Is that what you're just referred to now?
Well,
Regina versus Oakes?
that's what's in the documentation. Let's see if it comes up.
That's exactly the case precedent, Ed.
Hey, your buddy Este was involved in this one. Look.
Oh no, not Este. It's the wrong Este though.
Her Majesty the Queen and David Edwin Oakes, 1985. Dixon, CJ and Este, McIntyre, Quinard, Lammer, Wilson, and Ledane, JJ, on appeal from the Court of Appeal for Ontario. Charter of Rights, Presumption of Innocence, 11D. Reverse onus clause. Accused presumed to be trafficker on finding a possession of illicit drug. Onus on accused to rebut presumption. Whether or not reverse onus is in violation of Section 11D of the Charter, whether or not reverse onus is a reasonable limit, Section 11D.
And this is what I was talking about. The provincial offenses is unconstitutional, and there it is, right for you. You're guilty until you prove it innocent, which is wrong and unconstitutional.
So, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the city of Aurora has bought up all the photo radar equipment, and they're leasing it to various municipalities. You heard of that one yet?
Nope, I haven't heard of that. And who would they buy it from? Red Flag?
I don't know who they bought it from, but they're leasing. So
people better start looking into these municipal speed cameras and shit, because I believe the company's named Red Flag. Look into it in the U.S. These guys are getting continually thrown in the slammer. They're going to jail because they're giving kickbacks to all these municipal mayors and shit to get this stuff put through. And it's been over and over and over. Look it up. There's literally hundreds of cases of these guys doing this and getting sentenced to jail. So start looking in your municipalities. Start looking into your regional, your upper tier municipal governments. Look to your lower tier. Find out exactly what's going on. I'll bet you if you dig deep enough, you're going to find all sorts of shit.
So I was also communicating with Chris Sky this evening. His case is going on. This is the last one he's got going on. And I believe this goes all the way back to the COVID days. So what does he say? I was winning, and then when we got a good advantage, we pulled an adjournment based on them giving us new evidence morning of the trial, some of it which wasn't even legible by the judge. So now the delay will be attributed to Crown. The new date likely to be May, June 2026. So Chris has got to come back next June. And this incident happened in 2023. So good chance, because they're already losing, they drop it. If not, I can file an 11B for delay. Then if it did go back to trial, I have a very good chance of winning, and worst case, a guaranteed appeal. But I think we won. We put the Neil from Daily Bread on the stand, and the lawyer eviscerated him. They will attribute some delay to me. 11B needs 18 months attributed to the prosecution. So Chris seems to be quite knowledgeable on this lawfare stuff. And why would they come after him like so many times? And yet, if you go break into someone's house, you go in front of a judge the following morning, you're only in jail for one night, and they let you loose. Doesn't matter how many cars you've stolen or what kind of crimes you've done, as long as you're not going against the government narrative.
Yeah,
you're right.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And this is just it. They just caught a criminal down here who was wanted for attempted murder, all sorts of shit. But you know what? It's a female. So now we got politics back into this shit. And it actually is a higher percentage of female versus male crimes. But the thing is, females aren't considered a danger. So how do you figure that? If a female fucking commits murder, how is she not a danger to the public? But if a male does, he is. So this person, they just arrested them and they have bail the next day. And you know they're going to get it right away. All these fucking pedophiles. Niagara region is the hot spot for pedophiles purely and solely at the hands of the provincial PC conservative government here that we have. They condone that behavior. They refuse to work with survivors who have been abused. This is all documented. It's all in emails. They've, I won't even, I'm not going to get into it because it'll be a whole fucking show worth. But this is the problem we have right now. And the police, anyone that talks to police, the police will tell you they've been told. They've been told. So who does the telling to the police? Your fucking government that hires them, all right? That's who. Stop voting for these fucking tyrants. Wake up.
We're over an hour again.
Sorry.
No, it's a good show. I'm sure a few people are a little bit brighter now, a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more informed of what the current system is doing to us. And knowledge is power, guys. That's why we do this. We're heavily shadow banned. Stefanos can't even go live on his Facebook page, and he had to post to him every single show. So if you guys find any value in this, any little tidbits you want to spread out, you want to question us, we're always constantly reading the chat. So I'll take challenges from whoever, wherever, and we can debate these things, and we can look at different sides of the law, the Constitution. You know what I'd like to know? Remember when I got trespassed last December?
Yes, sir.
Menzies got trespassed the same time I did, maybe even a few minutes before I did.
Oh, yeah, I seen that on the video, yes.
Did he do a constitutional challenge on the trespass?
No, and I would question the reasoning why, because I have never heard an expression or an explanation, or you know what? And I'm not even going to single out the Pickering. I'm going to single out none of these. I'm going to group them and lump them as a whole. Remember, they were getting kicked out, showing up where Trudeau was, where, in Quebec. Why were there no constitutional challenges issued with him? They had a whole army of lawyers and paralegals working for them. Why would they not bring one single constitutional case in all of this stuff? And their media. So why wouldn't they?
Yeah, guys. How come they don't do constitutional challenges? But here, a lowly construction worker that's just doing a little bit of citizen journalism has got to start a lawsuit against them. Yeah.
Makes no sense, but it does raise a lot of red flags and a lot of questions in my own head.
Yep. And Ezra is a lawyer as well. Is there any way he could have gotten through law school and not known about these things in Canada? He was a lawyer.
Ezra is actually quite a knowledgeable lawyer. But I believe that he's not a practicing lawyer any longer. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he surrendered his license himself. So he's not a lawyer anymore. He can't use that title. If he surrendered him, he might have just suspended it or something.
Yeah, I know he's not practicing because he hires other lawyers. So I don't know. It just doesn't smell right to me. Or maybe he was sleeping the year that they were talking about constitutional stuff. Or maybe they don't teach it in law school.
No, they teach constitutional stuff in law school.
How do you know? You never went.
Hey, I got a little bit of a legal background. I got my diploma, and we were taught constitutional law there. So I don't see how they wouldn't teach a lawyer constitutional law.
Maybe constitutional law is reserved for paralegals.
No, absolutely not, because they can't even do that unless they have a resident lawyer at their firm. So it's out of their scope of practice.
Maybe the Law Society and the teachers and the professors are relying on the people like yourself that have gone through paralegal training to teach the lawyers about constitutional law.
No, there's no professors teaching. It has to be either a paralegal licensed, a lawyer licensed, or a judge that teaches us when you take those courses.
Oh, this is why. They don't want to be lumped in with me. Isn't that interesting?
You think that's what it is? I don't know. You know, I seen an interview not too long ago with Lisa Robinson. I believe it was with Menzies, and they spoke about a case in BC that the JCCF has taken up because BC said you can't record our meetings. But the funny thing is, your case wasn't mentioned at all, nothing to do with Pickering at all. But yet, they, instead of going to BC to speak to a counselor or somebody there where it's actually happened, they came to Pickering to speak to a counselor at Pickering who has done this, but mentioned absolutely nothing about your case or any type of constitutional challenge or lawsuit that may have come against Durham Regional Police or the city of Pickering. So I find that very interesting that they wouldn't mention that, but actually went to the city that's doing that. And even before BC done this. So again, this raises too many, too many red flags for me at this point. And I have to ask those questions to myself. Why? We could always reach out to Rebel Media for a comment on that, but will they give us one? I don't know. I've emailed Rebel several times and I've never gotten an acknowledgement from whatsoever. But you know, I can text Menzies and he'll speak to me. But I just don't know why. I'd like to get the answer from Ezra himself, since he's the editor and the one who's in command of the show. So he's going to be the one who's going to say who goes where and does what. I would imagine, anyways, being in charge. But that's really crazy.
Anyways, way over our limit, hour and 11. Sorry to keep you guys up so late. I know a lot of people got to get to work tomorrow. Slaves got to work so that they can pay their taxes and make sure the mobsters, aka the government, has money to line their pockets with for doing absolutely nothing or almost absolutely nothing. Guys, like I said, we're getting shadow banned like crazy. If you want to share this show out to groups, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, people need to know. That's why we do this. We're not getting anything. We don't get paid.
We don't get paid. No, we don't even ask for donations. So, you know, the other ones that do, you know what they're at for, why they're doing it.
Well, it gets expensive, having a StreamYard account and then time, energy.
Sure it does. Sure it does. But, you know, there's different things.
Yeah.
When you become a biased media outlet that claims you're not biased and you're taking donations, there's questions to be asked.
Anyways, next week we got Bryce coming on from New World Metals. We're going to be talking about silver, gold, money, and hopefully on Silver's Real Money YouTube page, it'll actually get processed and distributed around. Yeah, I'm a big believer in silver as being a real currency. In Venezuela, when the economy fell apart, people were actually using silver and gold to barter with. So yeah, it is real money. We've seen what's happening with the price. The dollar is worth what, 1% or 3% of what it was back in 1970 or at the turn of the century?
All I know is it's basically worthless nowadays.
Well, it still has some value, but I remember when I was a kid, this is before Jesus was a hippie. You could buy 5 bubble gums for a penny.
Ed, those days are over.
Popsicles were a nickel.
I remember that.
Chocolate bars were 10 cents.
Yeah, and now you're looking at almost $5.
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Actually, silver and gold, we're going to be bringing in the gentleman from New Age Precious Metals. We're going to get into this one. I know is going to go over time. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to 2 hours. We're going to do a deep dive on what is money, economics, what backs money. We're going to even get into CBDCs. We're going to dig into, well, who knows where the show is going to go. You never know where this show is going to go, ever. But we'll get into tokenization, hopefully. Explain to you what's guys coming down the pipe. Maybe even the BRICS, what's going on there, why that was started. So I'll leave you with one thing. Remember back when Biden said, I'm going to take all the money of Russia and freeze those assets in the United States, amongst other places? Think about that. The American dollar was a reserve currency. They weaponized that against Russia. So the BRICS, they figured, you know what, guys, let's get the hell out of here. Enough with this US dollar. They weaponized it. They broke that trust that the currency had. That's why the US dollar has been going down, down, down slowly. Why the value of money has been going down, currency, why it's been going down, down, down slowly. And even China, which was the biggest holder of not cash, but actual term deposits. Sorry, not term deposits. They bought T-bills, government treasury bills. They've gotten rid of more than half of what they've owned. And they're the biggest holder of American T-bills. And T-bills are what floats the American dollar. They buy these T-bills and they say 1 year, 2 year, whatever, 10 year, 20 year, 30 year, whenever they mature at a certain interest rate, it used to be thought of as good as gold, but they weaponized the US dollar against Russia. China probably figured, you know what, if they can weaponize it against Russia, they can weaponize it against us.
Yeah.
Let's get out of it slowly.
And remember, Ed, China bought up all the U.S. debt. What does one country want to do if they want to destabilize another country? Is to take a bunch of their money and then they flood them. And that just destroys them.
All right, guys, share this out if you care to. See you next Thursday. Silver, gold, money, currency. It's going to be a big one. Get ready for this one. Cheers. I didn't even get to finish my drink tonight.
I had a couple.
Later.